Good day, everybody. I wanted to go a little deeper into the Pakistan, India, China conflict. I realized I didn't do a very proficient job at kind of giving a breakdown of the opposing forces and just some real capability. So, first with India, obviously huge armed forces. I believe it's about 1.2 million men. They are very well equipped with anywhere from, I believe it's anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500, maybe upwards to 2,000 even of the T-90 main battle tank. Most of which are shipped from Russia, but they are producing the T-90 under a licensing agreement. I've heard there has been some issues with that. They also have probably 1,000 or so, if not more, of T-72s, which I understand they're upgrading in terms of tanks. They have a huge paramilitary structure with probably another million men when you take into account all the paramilitary forces India has. So a very sizable ground component that's very large. My understanding, they are professional and non-conscripted, which makes it equally more imposing as well, with just much better capacity and training. The Air Force, the Indian Air Force, that's an interesting a topic, and I think we could talk for a while about that. But pretty large force, well over 1,000 combat aircraft. Now here's the problem: their main fighter bomber, which they have invested heavily in, is the Su-30 MKI. I'm not completely sold on that system. I don't know if there's ever been a case where an Su-30 or an Su-30 MKI has shot down an opposing aircraft. I'm highly speculative of Russian beyond visual range missiles. I don't think they are that good. They haven't been tested in major conflict, but we just don't have a lot of cases of success with those systems. So they have a couple of hundred, I believe it's just over 200 of those Su-30s that they could deploy. They're probably their best fighter aircraft is about 40 or 50 Mirage 2000s, and then I believe they have less than a dozen of the Rafale French aircraft as well. So when you're comparing the two countries, and I'll get into Pakistan's Air Force here in a second, but I'm not sure India has the upper hand, especially when it comes to China. Now, Pakistan, the army is 500,000. They have a couple of thousand main battle tanks, and those are mainly the Al-Khalid, which Pakistan produces. It's kind of an offshoot of a T-72 type model, and then they have some T-80 UDs, about 350 of those. They also have some upgraded T-55s that they've put 125 millimeter main guns on, and they've upgraded the optics with some thermal imaging sights. So when you compare the two, T-90 versus the Al-Khalid or the T-80 UD, I think it's really going to come down to training and tank gunnery. The Pakistans are reportedly producing a depleted uranium round, which could penetrate the frontal arc of the T-90. But again, hard to say. but given their two capabilities, I think it would really come down to training, tank training, and the skill set of the gunners and the tank commanders. The Pakistani Air Force is mainly equipped with a variety of Western and Chinese systems. So they have probably just under 200 Mirage 3 and 5s, which they've upgraded. They have 70 plus F-16s that have also been upgraded. They have the AMRAAM as well, which is great if you're Pakistan. And then they have about 100 of the newer generation Chinese, the FJ-17, I believe it's called, and that's looks to be a pretty fairly capable aircraft. But when you try to get into the nuts and bolts of comparing India and Pakistan, I know a lot of Indian folks out there are probably going to take are going to second guess this, but I think Pakistan has an Air Force advantage against the Indians. Again, I'm not completely sold on the Su-30. That leaves them with a bunch of upgraded MiG-21s, Jaguars. I believe they're even using either the MiG-23 or MiG-27 as well, which is just a horrible aircraft. And those aircraft would be going against fairly modern, upgraded with the help of Turkey F-16s. Again, those newer generation Chinese aircraft. And the thing about it with those Chinese aircraft, I see those Chinese aircraft operating with navigation and targeting pods. I don't see those Su-30 MKIs operating with Western targeting pods. They're going on, there's big radars, and they're firing those beyond visual range missiles that I'm not sure work. I mean, even the more advanced AMRAAM in some cases is a 50-50 kill shot. You fire one, it's got a 50% chance of hitting. You fire two, probably much better chance. We do know in the latest conflict when that Indian MiG-21 was shot down, it sounds like it was shot down with an AMRAAM at a significant distance. So again, proven capability against an unproven capability. The Pakistani Air Force, its pilots are very well trained, and I think at least initially they would have an upper hand against India until India can really get its. And I'm sorry, India also has a domestic fighter, I believe it's the HAL, but again, unproven system against proven systems. And then you have to look at the ground forces for Pakistan. Again, 500,000 active. They've got another 150, 200,000 paramilitaries, another 500,000 reserves. So, again, well over 1 million men that could be drawn upon very quickly. And then if you go into the kind of the 60, 90, 1 year period of marshaling reservists, I mean, you're talking in the millions for both countries, right? And then you have China. I think we all kind of know what China's capacity is. The problem with China in operating along the border, or at least the western border of India, is lack of infrastructure. I mean, look at this. I mean, you can just go and you can see that there just isn't a lot of infrastructure. And if India is able to, blow up certain roads with precision-guided munitions, if they are able to do that and overcome the Chinese Air Force, which I believe there's only one or two airfields in this area that China could even use. And again, it's a very high altitude for hundreds of miles. Now, granted, there is valleys and what have you, but it's still just a desolate area if you look at this. And if you come over here and you look at India's terrain, here's the border where operations would be taking place, and they're very close to lowland areas and infrastructure, major cities to draw upon. China, not so much. So that's why I think India would probably have an advantage, especially along that western border. I think if China, as aggressive as it's been acting, I think it would have acted if they thought they could have been successful against a modern India. But I'm not sure they would be, especially just given the supply deficiencies that they could face over here on the Chinese side. I didn't really get into the naval aspect of it. Obviously, India has a much more powerful naval capacity than the Pakistanis. And then again, the Chinese would be traveling a fairly significant distance to for us to see any kind of naval engagements, in the Bay of Bengal or wherever. So again, just a quick overview on the three nations, and just again briefly some of their capacity. Didn't really get into ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, or anything like that, but all three nations have the ability to produce both cruise missiles and ballistic missiles, and could do significant damage to each other's infrastructure. One more final topic: drones. I don't believe India is producing any kind of unmanned combat aircraft right now. Any form of combat drones. Most of the drones they're using are of Israeli make. The Pakistanis are producing a drone that can mount weapon systems and precision guided missiles and bombs and so forth, and it has been used in around the northwestern provinces. So they're probably also getting assistance from Turkey, and probably wouldn't be surprised if you would see Turkish drones operating inside of Pakistan, given the relationship. The air defense capability of each nation outside of manned aircraft isn't great. I don't believe either nation has an integrated air defense system. So that really wouldn't come into play. The only area where air defense systems would come into play for India and Pakistan would be guarding key sites where both India and Pakistan have air defense systems in those areas. But a nationwide air defense system, air defense network, the likes you see in Western Russia or Israel, you do not see that in Pakistan nor India. You also don't see it really in China. In the West, you see their integrated air defense systems mainly along their eastern seaboard, facing Taiwan and some other areas. But I'll give updates on this, especially if anything heats up with India and Pakistan and China.